Let's begin with the foundations. Let's discuss the list of FIFA World Cup finals. This is another lecture. I'm Alexei. It's important to understand that when we look at a list like this, we are in fact looking at the distilled endpoints of entire tournament ecosystems. The one match where years of preparation and a month of competition converge into 90 minutes, sometimes 120, and occasionally a sequence of penalty kicks that live in national memory for decades.
Hi, I'm Priyanka. I'm excited to learn and to ask a few simple questions that maybe open up the bigger picture, because I think that helps me follow the logic of why these finals matter so much.
To frame our discussion, the FIFA World Cup is the flagship international competition in association football. It has run every 4 years since 1930, except in 1942 and 1946 due to World War II. Fundamentally, it assembles qualified senior men's national teams under FIFA, the sport's global governing body, and it proceeds through a group phase into a knockout phase whose culmination is the final. The final is a single winner-takes-all match. If tied after regulation, we proceed to extra time. And if still level, a penalty shootout determines the champion under current rules.
So maybe before we go too deep, can we define a few terms? FIFA is the global governing body. UEFA is Europe's confederation. CONMEBOL is South America's. Extra time is added play after a draw in regulation. A penalty shootout is the alternating kicks to break a tie after extra time. The golden goal rule, which once made the first extra time goal decisive, applied in 1998 and 2002, but never actually decided a final. And round robin just means each team in a group plays the others, with standings deciding the outcome.
Precisely. In the match listings, you will often see a notation such as AET to indicate extra time, and pen to denote a penalty shootout, as in 1994 0-0 decided 3-2 on penalties, or 2006's 1-1 decided 5-3 on penalties. This concise code tells us in effect how the champion was crowned on the day. Moving forward, why should we care about this list? Because the World Cup final is arguably among the most watched single sporting events on Earth. It concentrates cultural narratives, national identity, and the strategic evolution of the game. It is also the sharp end of a historical pattern. Only Europe's UEFA and South America's CONMEBOL have ever supplied finalists or champions. Results by confederation in the record indicate 29 UEFA final appearances and 15 for CONMEBOL. Within those, UEFA has 12 winners and CONMEBOL 10, which taken together exhaust all championships to date.
Isn't it interesting how global the tournament is, and yet the very last match has been so geographically concentrated? It makes me wonder what that says about development pathways, and how hard it is to cross that final threshold.
That's a good point. Let's start with the history. The inaugural final was staged in 1930, setting the 4-year cadence that holds, with the 2 World War II cancellations in 1942 and 1946 interrupting the sequence. The sole structural exception to a one-match final occurred in 1950, when a final round-robin group decided the title. The decisive match ended 2-1 at Maracana Stadium before an extraordinary listed attendance of approximately 174,000, a figure never approached in later all-seater eras. From 1954 onward, the format returned to a single-match final. As for competitive achievements, Germany has reached more finals than any other team, with 8 appearances and 4 titles, reflecting extraordinary continuity across eras. Brazil, uniquely present at every World Cup, holds the record with 5 titles and 2 runners-up finishes. Argentina, the current champion, secured its 3rd crown in 2022 in Lusail, prevailing on penalties after a 3-3 draw, with an attendance of approximately 89,000. And the post-1986 rules matter. From that year forward, if extra time does not separate the sides, penalties do. 1994 was the first final decided that way.
And not every finalist has won, right? Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Sweden, the Netherlands, and more recently Croatia have all reached the last match without lifting the trophy. It kind of shows how rare even an appearance is.
In fact, with roughly 80 nations having appeared in the tournament historically, only 13 have reached the final, and only 8 have won. Mathematically, that is a narrow apex. Sociologically, it is a club of scarce membership. This then completes our present baseline. Before we get to the complexities, a brief personal note. I spend a perhaps unhealthy amount of time analyzing how competitive systems resolve uncertainty. The final fascinates me because for all its drama, it is a well-specified decision procedure culminating with a name engraved on the base of a trophy. And yet, it is also one of the few truly global civic rituals in sport, shared live by millions. That duality, precision and emotion, keeps drawing me back. This logically leads us to 3 questions we should address. First, what factors contributed to the historical dominance of UEFA and CONMEBOL in World Cup finals? Second, what if the 1950 World Cup had used a single-match final instead of a round-robin? Third, how might the competition evolve to include more diverse finalists from beyond those 2 confederations? On our first question, we observe over nearly a century a concentration of elite performance within Europe and South America. Historically, these regions benefited from early codification of the game, dense competitive calendars, and robust domestic leagues that refined tactics and talent at scale. International exposure between their top sides created repeated high-intensity learning cycles. We can infer cumulative advantage effects, whereby each generation inherits institutional knowledge, from youth development to match preparation, that improves the probability of reaching and winning finals. The results by confederations summarize the outcome: 29 UEFA appearances and 15 CONMEBOL appearances. All champions to date are drawn from these 2.
I'm curious about whether other regions can realistically break through to a final soon. Like, what would have to change? Is it just time and experience, or are there clearer levers?
To elaborate, it is not merely time, though time helps. We would expect progress to correlate with investment in sustained youth development, high-quality coaching education, and competitive minutes against top-tier opposition. Domestic leagues that retain or attract elite players can improve tactical sophistication. Data analysis and sports science can close marginal gaps that at knockout stage level matter enormously. Cross-confederation club competitions and regular friendlies against top UEFA and CONMEBOL sides can accelerate adaptation. In simpler terms, you need a pipeline, a laboratory, and a schedule that forces improvement. None of this guarantees a final, but it reduces the structural disadvantage. Let's transition to another aspect, the 1950 counterfactual. That tournament uniquely used a final round-robin group of 4, rather than a single-match final. The decisive match of that group, played at Maracanã before a listed approximately 174,000, ended 2-1. Theoretically, a single-match final imposes symmetrical incentives and a binary outcome locus, while a round-robin can permit path-dependent strategies influenced by previous results, goal differences, and multiple equilibria. Under a one-off final, managers set up for a singular peak. Under a group, they manage a portfolio of risks across matches.
What if we thought about it like this? If 1950 had a single final, would the story of that champion feel different? Like, would the mythology change because of the narrative clarity of one day, one game?
Arguably, yes. Single match finals produce a canonical date, a precise script, and a trophy lift that closes the text in one scene. A round robin distributes tension and can make the decisive moment feel discovered rather than appointed. Had 1950 ended with a set-piece final, the tactical approach might have shifted. Psychological framing would center on managing one evening rather than a mini-tournament, and subsequent historiography would likely emphasize dueling lineups over group arithmetic. None of this alters the legitimacy of the champion, but it does alter how memory compresses the event into a narrative that later generations quote and replay. On to our next point, the future of diversity in finalists. We can reasonably expect broader global development to continue. The knowledge of how to build competitive programs is widely shared, and the calendar regularly exposes emerging teams to elite opposition. The final in 2026 is scheduled for MetLife Stadium, a reminder that the showpiece itself travels to new contexts, which can catalyze further investment. Initiatives that tend to matter include long-horizon youth pathways, coach education exchanges, and enhanced analytics capacity within federations. When such inputs compound, they raise the ceiling of performance.
Can we say that the biggest barriers are kind of systemic, like depth of competition at home, access to top-level matches, maybe even how quickly a team can learn from losses in high-pressure knockout games?
Clearly. Barriers are often structural rather than momentary. Sustaining elite training environments, building domestic leagues that sharpen tactical acuity, and scheduling regular matches against finalist caliber opponents. Additionally, at the margin, finals are decided by small edges. The post-1986 tie-breaking regime ensures a champion on the day, but it also means penalty competence, game state management in extra time, and substitution planning become decisive skills. Federations that institutionalize these micro-competencies, alongside macro investments, are the likeliest to bridge the gap. In conclusion on this point, diversity in finalists is not a miracle. It is an accumulation. To summarize, the World Cup final is the definitive match of the sport's flagship tournament. Since 1930, it has crowned champions, with 1950's round robin the lone structural exception. Under modern rules, tied finals proceed to extra time and, if necessary, penalties, a mechanism that has decided multiple titles. We examined why UEFA and CONMEBOL have dominated, imagined how 1950 might look under a single final, and considered how broader investment could expand the pool of finalists. If this piqued your interest, you might also explore the list of FIFA Confederations Cup finals to compare formats and narratives across another global showpiece. Thank you for listening, and keep asking good questions. The record always has more to teach us.
Thank you, Professor. That was helpful to think through, actually.